Advisory Plan Commission for Westfield, Washington Township to order. Pam, could you, or who's in charge? Rachel is? Could you determine a quorum, please?
Kristen Berkman,
Here.
Matt Deck,
Here.
Bob Horke,
Someone has it on. Someone needs to mute.
Mike Johns,
Here.
Ginny Kelleher,
Here.
Andre Maui,
Here.
Victor McCarty,
Here.
Dave Schmitz,
Here.
Cindy Spoljaric.
Try
All right, we have
Cindy
a
again.
quorum.
She said she was going to be virtual.
Cindy Spoljaric. All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. First on the agenda is for you to determine the ground rules for this evening. We don't have any public hearings, so it should be fairly straightforward.
You do minutes.
Due to the COVID-19 emergency as declared by the Governor of Indiana, the format and conduct of the meeting has been modified to comply with executive orders regarding the conduct of public meetings, public hearings, and public gatherings. Relevant portions of the Indiana Open Door Law have been amended or suspended during the pendency of the emergency. Procedures for non-public hearing items. For items that do not require a public hearing, the department will summarize the petition and highlight any changes or modifications since the item was last before the Plan Commission. The department will also describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken. The petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present any changes. The Plan Commission will then act upon the petition. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private conversation, then we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time. If you must answer them, then please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person and wish to speak in regard to a petition scheduled for a public hearing, then please fill out a yellow card and bring it to me prior to the presentation of the petition. During your comments, please state your name and address into the microphone for the record. We ask that you do not repeat previously stated comments. We would like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone so your comments can be put onto the record. Also, please mute your microphone when not speaking. If you come up to the podium to speak, please ensure that the microphone is on, as indicated by the green light on the base. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from January 18th. Does anyone have any corrections, additions, comments? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the January 18th, 2022 APC minutes.
I can second.
Okay, I have a motion by Andre Maui and a second by Kristen Berkman to approve the minutes of January 18th.
Kristen Berkman,
Yes.
Matt Deck,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Ginny Kelleher,
Yes.
Andre Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
and has Cindy Spoljaric joined?
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you. First item on the agenda under items of business is 2108-ODP 18 and 2108-SPP 18, the Highlands Latin School.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Rachel Remenschneider with the Community Development Department. This proposal is for the overall development plan and primary plat review of one lot on approximately 30.88 acres in the AG SF1 district. This project is located at 3810 West 146th Street. They are here this evening seeking approval for the overall development plan and primary plat. This item received its public hearing on August 2nd, 2021, and was properly noticed and advertised. There were no public comments at the time of the public hearing. However, one was received over the weekend, which has been added to the exhibits for this item. Michael Thompson from Hamilton Designs is here this evening to make a brief presentation. He and I are available for questions if you have any for staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Michael Thompson, Hamilton Designs, 11 Municipal Drive, Fishers, Indiana, 46038. Appreciate your time this evening. I know it's cold out, a lot of snow. This project's been going through the review process for a while, and happy to be here this evening. The project was initially going to be split into two properties, and the adjoining properties were obviously had natural concerns of what the back property was going to be developed as. And so we met with them on site, I want to say back in August or September. Through that discussion, we then met with staff a couple times, and we discovered that the best route was going to be to leave it as one piece of property and then ask for a variance to not have to do the landscaping or to touch the landscaping at all on the whole back half. So that went through a variance process and was approved. That's what the adjoiners had asked for. There's a large piece of forest kind of in the notch area, if you follow that dotted line there, that, yeah, you can see it perfectly there. And we have tried exceptionally hard to stay out of that. I know that there was an email that came in today, I believe, that had asked if we could keep that, and only the trees on the very, very far west. There's a sanitary main that has to go right through there. So that's the only bit of the trees that we intend to touch at all. And if my client had his way, we would not touch them at all. So we're trying our very best to keep every tree. The tree line going east and west is going to stay, all the trees on the site. So the school property is intended to be developed as a school. It's zoned properly. I think the email today thought that there was going to be a rezone, but I don't believe that that is the case. So at least not to my knowledge of any kind. So the appropriate zoning for the school, gone back and forth a couple different times, ended up with a wet pond in the front to provide for the required detention and water quality. Worked very hard to get the circulation correct with the pickup and drop off of schools. Have plenty of queue. Overall, worked really hard to get everything in compliance. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments? Okay. Anybody?
I
virtually?
do. Sorry, Jenny.
Oh, Cindy?
Yeah, I apologize for that. And I'm hearing an echo. I'm sorry. I noticed that the pond, at least in these drawings, does not appear to be naturalized in any way. And I know that that is something we typically require. So can I ask why that doesn't appear to be naturalized?
Cindy, so this is just their overall development and primary plat, so they will be coming through for their DDP on the consent agenda, probably in the next couple of months, I would imagine. So that's where the landscaping will be shown on the detailed development plan.
Well, and just not the landscaping, but also the shape of the retention ponds is not supposed to be angular like this. That was another concern. I was just wondering.
Yeah, the pond was originally a wet pond, and then it became a dry pond, and then it went back to a wet pond. The reason why the pond is the way it is today is because of the large amount of right-of-way that was part of the expansion of the road, and trying to keep the expansion of the building not going too far north into the tree line and keeping it to where we can get the sanitary line around the east side of the building. So there was a lot of work keeping this development west, away from the trees, and keeping it to a certain line north and south to stay out of the trees. And so to our surprise, actually, we did the survey in 2018. We designed the initial site. There was additional right-of-way sold or taken, however you want to take the words, along the whole south that our survey didn't even have until we sent it into the county for review, which really tightened the footprint of the pond to be like there's no buffer in the pond at the moment north and south, which really limits the ability to create natural ins and outs on the pond. I know that's probably not the whole answer that you would like, but that's how we ended up with the pond the way it is.
I understand. It's just, this is Ag SF1 zoning. This is an institutional use, and I expected a more naturalized appearance rather than an institution, like industrial kind of looking pond that we typically see. And so there was just that's what's still just a bit shocking to me.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? I'd just like to say that the thoughtfulness that went into this, including your drop-off and pickup, I'm very impressed with. So welcome to Westfield. Kristen? Okay.
I'll just echo Mrs. Kelleher's comments. I really appreciate you guys coming to Westfield, so welcome.
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing.
I'm just saying, welcome to Westfield.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much.
So, I am ready for a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the primary plat and overall development plan, 2108 SPP 18 and 2108 ODP 18, with the condition that all necessary approvals be obtained from the Westfield Public Works Department and Hamilton County Surveyor's Office prior to the issuance of an improvement location permit.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Dave and a second by Matt.
Kristen Berkman,
Yes.
Matt Deck,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Ginny Kelleher,
Yes?
Andre Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz, Cindy Spoljarek.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item on our agenda is 2112 PUD-29, Springwater PUD.
Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Rachel Remenschneider with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you tonight is the Springwater PUD. The proposal is for approximately 49 acres on the south side of Union Street, north of 161st. The PUD proposes a residential development with both townhomes and single-family homes while preserving the existing residence and store. The Springwater PUD had its public hearing on Monday, December 6th. It was properly noticed and advertised. All written public comments received by staff are in the exhibit, including one received over the weekend. The item is here this evening requesting a recommendation to council. Justin Moffett of Old Town Designs is here this evening to present the details of the project. He is available to answer any questions, as am I, if you have any for staff. Thank you.
Please. Good evening, Justin Moffett with Old Town. Ed and Neil from Apollo, our development partners, were unable to attend tonight, so I'm pinch hitting. I know we had a lot of dialogue at the previous meeting, I believe about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, and agreed that we'd work actively to make modifications and get additional detail back to Plan Commission members by last week so we could get feedback before tonight. And I wanted to thank you for the effort the Plan Commission members and staff extended in getting us good feedback. I think just down to the wire, even the last hour, I was responding to a few emails. So I think we're mostly there with addressing the concerns. I'm fully assuming there's still some PUD cleanup based on recent comments we've gotten, but hopefully we can move forward and address most outstanding concerns tonight. Don't need to spend much time here, but just want to acknowledge this was the original site plan presented to the Plan Commission in early December. Based on the feedback that we received at that first meeting, we came back with these modifications to the plans. These are all familiar to you, but I just want to hit the highlights that we changed the 3-story product to 2-story. I want to acknowledge that we think there's room in the market and desirability in the market for both product types. And so it was not, seen by our team as like a penalty or, something negative for the project. We think that it works just fine, and we were receptive to that. It did result in lower density of the overall quantity of units. There's comments around buffering that I don't think that we addressed adequately by the time we got to the last meeting. I think we've resolved that for tonight. And just for the most part, questions about how the design standards worked on the architecture and the language in the PUD. That resulted in really just a modification of the site plan, changing from 3-story townhomes to 2-story, and some clarifications on the plan. And then it became really clear at the last meeting that there was a goal to eliminate any sort of construction north of that main entry across from Woodside Drive. And maybe that wasn't clear enough to us in our hearing of the comments, but I think after talking to one of those neighbors via email and hearing some Plan Commission comments and on the desire to kind of preserve that intact wooded area, we elected to remove that as well. So that's a plan we're going to share with you tonight. So subsequently, further reduction in density because of the loss of those townhome units. But I think that met with a goal of keeping even more wooded area preserved. The buffer yards adjacent to the properties to the east was another point in question. We actually didn't change the overall area, the quantity area, but we just clarified that it's not on somebody's private lot. It is in common area now with language around what that means in tree preservation language as well. We updated the character images for the townhomes. I'll run through those. There was a note about making sure any future approval of the plans, it would be in substantial compliance with the concept plan. Confirm uses in the ordinance, and address four-sided architecture and provide some more detail around the architectural standards. So this is the updated site plan based on those comments. Just wanted to clarify to the north, adjacent to Lawn Cemetery, that area has not changed from as far as the width of that area, nor has the area to the east, that red area, changed. We've just changed how it's treated in the language of the PUD. Previously, in the last round, we showed that as part of the private lot. So basically they were colored orange, but we were going to sign it and put restrictions that it was a tree preservation area. There was concern raised that private property owners would treat it as their own and clear out anything they wished. Our past experience is that there's a challenge with it either way we go. And ultimately, we heard from Plan Commission members that there's a preference to make it part of a common area controlled by the HOA, that there's some teeth to it. So that's the change there. So the orange lots lost 40 feet in depth. They were the larger lots in the development. So really their functional space did not change at all. But now we've clearly delineated that red area as both tree preservation. The first 30 feet moving east to west is tree preservation. And then the next 10 feet is a new planted buffer that we would add. And all of that buffering language and commitment for trees in there came through quite a bit of dialogue with those neighbors there to the east. And then maybe the most critical area here is the portion of the property directly east of Woodside Drive. We have now labeled that as a common area. Majority of it's tree preservation area. We would have the right to get in there to cull out any dead trees, invasive species, and to notch out an area for the amenity space where we might have a playground. There was a concern raised about maybe figuring out how to push that potential playground area further away from the right-of-way for safety reasons. Fine with that, did not have time to adjust the plans for tonight, but that would be our goal as well. We just wanted to notionally suggest it in there. We have not fully programmed that yet, so we'll be sharing additional plans with you once we design that. So really, the townhome area is now restricted to this node here, directly across from the commercial use at Lantern Commons. And so, repeat what I said before, that we think that we've we worked to create a logical density transition from more of a commercial use towards, the single family in the interior of our development. So that's the proposal there, is that we would have 2-story townhomes fronting Union Street. It's shown as a mixture of 3 and 4 unit buildings. We're willing to commit to having no more than 4 units per building, so we wouldn't come back and say, we decided we're gonna do a 6-unit building. I think there was a desire to see the massing broken up a little so it wasn't, the feeling of a homogeneous roof line or front facade. Additionally, there's language and then some images showing how we'll offset the facade, so we'll have movement unit by unit, front to back. I believe that covers a majority of the changes to the site plan. Don't need to discuss this too much further as far as the single-family product. I think you're all pretty familiar with that. I did want to pause here, though, and make note of what we refer to as a masonry water table. Looking at these images here, you'll see that we follow what we call the water table around the foundation with masonry. So that's the way the PUD language is written, that we are required to have masonry wrap all 4 sides of the structure. There was some discussion on whether or not we would increase it to just below the windows. Ultimately, it's our belief that a water table is architecturally appropriate. It follows historical design vernacular for craftsman style American farmhouse. And it is our opinion that a lot of times when municipalities force, like, let's take it just below the windows on the main level, it actually comes off as fairly, production architecture. And in our view, it cheapens the look of the construction. So we find that when we customize homes, some clients really want to have more masonry, and certainly we offer that to them. Masonry right now is not more expensive than hardy like it used to be. We're finding that hardy, with supply chain issues, we're paying about the same. So it's really driven by a client preference. And if you'll drive through Maple Ridge as an example over on Oak Road, average sticker price of a home in there is about $1.2 million. And you see predominantly water table masonry and a lot of painted siding. That seems to be a design trend that's a preference for our clients. So that's what drove the language there. If there's any desire to have further conversation around that, glad to engage in that, but that's the reason behind the language in the PUD. This image here, just again, we felt like we should update the open space exhibit based on all the conversations happened. Really, nothing's changed other than reduction in density and treatment of these tree preservation areas here across from Woodside Drive and how they're labeled here along the east property line. I believe you saw this last month, but just wanted to acknowledge here just the front to back movement of the Union Street townhomes and the planting detail along there. There was a comment we received later in the day about making sure that we have adequate space for street trees along there, and that's certainly the goal. And so we'll make sure that we accommodate that. We updated the character images of the townhomes based on the conversation we had previously, mostly because I believe one of the Plan Commission members pointed out that we had the carryover from having 3-story, and there's some images of 3-story in there. So we removed all of those, and we kind of broadened the design to show that we're looking at styles of craftsman and farmhouse and kind of a mixture of maybe some Victorian in there. Still have a strong interest in what we're calling transitional architecture, but we wanted to allow our team the flexibility to be creative and find something that really fits the site well. So acknowledging that there's architectural design requirements and text in the PUD, there's character images to represent quality. All of these images carry throughout what we would consider four-sided architecture, high quality materials. We don't have kind of the pretty side and the ugly side that we would model this level of quality on all sides of the townhome product. Again, you've seen the rear load product before that would be alley served for the garage. Didn't hear much debate about that product. Same with the front load. There was a comment about vision clearance standards. I think that was listed as a variation from your UDO. I had requested the team put this exhibit together just to show kind of the UDO standard versus other municipalities in the area versus what we've proposed for the vision clearance at 35 feet. The kind of catch-all standard in the Westfield UDO, I think is more typical of a large commercial development where there's a lot of traffic, ingress, egress out of a main entry point. Just really not necessary for this circumstance, and we typically find that the engineering department agrees with this position. So that is the justification for the vision clearance standard waiver there. With that, I think I've covered most everything that I think was brought to our attention. Looking forward to hearing what additional questions, concerns might still exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I'll go down the row. Andre?
I don't have any questions, just a couple of comments. First of all, thank you for your patience and your extraordinary responsiveness to all of the feedback that we give you and the public comments as well. I think it's tremendous. And then secondly, more importantly, I may have said this last time, I apologize if I repeat, but I don't recall if I said it out loud. This concept plan shows such intentional respect of the property that's already there, the way the design works with what's there. I like seeing that. I think you guys do a great job, and I just wanted to commend you for that. Thanks.
Thank you. Kristen?
I agree with all that, so I won't repeat it. But I do want to thank you for your attention to the buffering with the neighbors to the east. I know that's something that I had mentioned earlier, and then also for the neighbors at Woodside Estates. I think this is a very respectful solution for them, and also being able to preserve those trees, I think is throughout the entire property is much appreciated by not only me, but the community. I think we're trying to see as much tree preservation in our community as we can have. So thank you for that.
Victor?
I agree with all of the sentiments made, so I'll just try to add my own additional comments. That I think the additional architecture that's in Exhibit C are beautiful. I think the initial ones were beautiful, but those that have been added are still unique in their own right, and I think it's this development will add its own flavor to Westfield, something that we're needing. You've checked off all the boxes that I could ever ask for with this project, especially now with getting rid of the townhomes to the north across from Woodside. That was the biggest thing for me. So again, I just appreciate all the attention to detail with this project. And for the third time, I'd like to thank the Bow Champs for being part of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
You guys have worked really hard in accommodating everyone's concerns and requests, so I don't think we need to really spend too much time with all of this. We just need to move it ahead to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Cindy Spoljarek?
Well, hi. I will agree with the sentiments. It's not always the case that we have a developer that is willing to work with us on a lot of these concerns, and this is an important piece of property. So I appreciate it. I have submitted a bunch of comments about this project, and some of them are still maybe not 100% addressed, and they're probably minute in some people's opinions, but we have a definition of exterior material, and I've actually requested that both of the definitions that were included in there be taken out. I didn't think they were necessary, and a bit misleading in that it only applies to a front facade, but yet this says exterior. So I just had an issue with that and was hoping it would be taken out. I'm still wondering what exactly a composite panel is. I haven't seen this, or maybe I have seen it and didn't know that that's what it was called. So if we could get some clarification on what actually a composite panel is. And we did move now let's see, we got 12 feet between each of the townhome buildings. So that was a move. I know you had to get your units in, and so you were trying to tuck them in there, but it was 15, and now it's down to 12. And that's not very much. I know you only have the ability to do, what is it, 4 in a building under the UDO standard? But still, that's not that much area. And then with a sidewalk or path in between each building like that, it's not leaving much for planting. And I know you gave us you had a drawing or something on one of your previous pages that showed it, but there just wasn't a lot of room left to landscape. And given there's very minimal in front and not really enough on the sides to do anything, I didn't know how you were going to fit any trees or if it was just going to be a few little shrubs to break up those areas. So just a bit of a concern that I have moving down to 12 feet between buildings. And the staggering, I know our UDO would be at least 4 feet and you're down to 1.5. But again, I think probably with the smaller number of units per building, it's probably not that bad. I will say I had requested that each of the districts be given a maximum unit count. I would have felt probably more comfortable with putting it like that. I know in your tables you had some other items listed comparable to UDO standard, but we didn't have it listed how many units were actually available to each district. So I also did not see anything that would prohibit the garages projecting from the front facade. There was nothing I saw that was limiting that. So if you could expound on any of those, I would appreciate it.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm probably going to miss a few here, but I did want to just go down the list how I have it written. On the exterior language, Cindy, you might have seen an email from me that tried to provide a clarification. There was prescriptive language around 4-sided architecture and the materials, windows, quality materials, and then there was a subsection that further addressed front facades that, in my reading of the ordinance, enhanced for front facades beyond what was required of 4-sided architecture. And my example I'd give you would be like, there's certain circumstances where we'd all probably find it appropriate to have 2 windows on a side of an elevation of a house. Same quality of materials, though, as far as siding and trim, detail, et cetera. But we probably wouldn't find it acceptable to have 2 windows in the front elevation. So that section defined that we'd have no less than, I think 4 windows on a single-story home or 6 windows on a 2-story home. And so I read that as just additional requirements to enhance the streetscape. So if I'm not understanding that concern, please let me know. But we felt like it was just additive. It didn't strip away anything from the requirement of 4-sided architecture.
Well, for me, it was just confusing because again, it was saying exterior material, but then only applying it to the front, and it was included as a definition, not a standard. And so typically when it would be something that would involve a standard that only applied to one side, for instance, or whatever, we'd see that in that section, not in the definition. So I guess that's where my disconnect is with it.
Okay. And I'll let staff and Plan Commission advise on how we progress with comments like that, because I guess we would respectfully request an approval tonight and not be continued again, but knowing that we have no problem with cleaning up these minor things prior to going to council. So I think if we are given some direction on that, it'd be appreciated. I found a image there of the composite panel. This top right image in a hardy type material, a fiber cement siding. That's what we would consider a composite panel. It is different than Hardy makes a 4x8 or 4x9 sheet product. You typically see that in board and batten type architecture. That might actually be this second image down the right, what that is. And they put batten strips over the joints and then, certain cadence, so it looks, breaks up that panel. On modern style buildings, we're seeing a lot more of this composite material. It's the same fiber cement material, but there's a special J-channel product that goes over those seams. It's a more expensive siding material than standard hardy. So it's an upgrade, so it's not a way to find a shortcut. It's actually a far more expensive product. But we tend, on more modern elevations, we use that material. The maximum unit count per district, we are fine memorializing that. We expect it to follow the site plan as presented. So if you would like to make your approval condition upon matching the concept site plan unit count, we are fine with that. And then garages. You know, I think Cindy brings up a great point there. You know, we have a minimum driveway depth, but even though, you know, we would have no intentions of doing what I think frequently referred to as snout nose garages on, you know, a lot of production architecture where the garage sits out front of the house. That's the opposite of how we tend to design. We tend to have the porch sit out in front of the house and the garage set back. So we'd make a commitment to that, that the garage would sit at least 10 feet back from the front facade of the house, and that front facade includes the front porch. Cindy's right on the separation between townhome units. That was amended from 15 to 12. We were at 15 when we had the 3-story product, and we felt like the separation of 12 was sufficient when we went down to the 2. Also, you're well aware we took a pretty significant density hit, so sacrificing even more would have been challenging for us, and we felt like that worked out nicely. Would still give us adequate spacing on either side of the walk. I can assure you we would never plant a tree between those structures, so it's not eliminating our ability to plant trees in there. We would still have adequate space to run a walk, and keep in mind the walk doesn't run I don't believe between each building, just at certain segments, so we can provide access to the parking in the rear. But we feel like that didn't really restrict our ability to put the landscaping that was necessary. Might have missed a few, but that was the list I was able to jot down there. Cindy, anything else that I could address further?
One more thing, Justin, if you wouldn't mind. I know that you have it laid out in the concept plan for the tree preservation easement. My issue being 2 things is, one, you have an amenity area that's inside a tree preservation easement, which defeats the tree preservation easement when you start constructing anything in it, which I realize you're trying to find a place for it and embed it in there, and I really do appreciate that. My issue now is coming, and this is not aimed toward you. This is aimed at, I have to consider this zoning runs with the land. You
Yes.
sell this tomorrow, I have to think about that. So again, a lot of these comments are not for you specifically, but because this zoning runs with the land. But the tree preservation easements are not really outlined that I can tell very specifically. And we have run into problems in the past, and a lot of times I think it might be an accident when they're going to construct, but certain areas just are eaten into that should have maybe been preservation areas but weren't really outlined. They were generalized tree preservation. And so my concern is that, and again, not you, but somebody else, or on accident, it could just be some of these areas wind up gone. And how do we actually outline that to ensure that that's what we're getting? And I don't know if you need to just color code the exact areas on that concept plan. And maybe there is, and I'm just blind and I can't see them, but I just didn't see it. I just saw areas that just say tree preservation easement without any delineation.
Sure. I think the reality is, except for the area where we were going to put an amenity area, the entire area here with delineated by this, this block on the plat would be the tree preservation area. The only other exception to it was work related to any corrective action needed on the legal drain. Up top here, again highlighted, and we try to clarify here the distinction that this buffer yard area would be new landscape versus this red would be tree preservation. Same with this edge over here. So, I think the reality is that there is some area in here where it's scrub, and I think we want to keep it intact, but I think if we took a walk out there together, we'd say, yeah, let's put a playground right here because it's invasive species and scrub. You better believe that there's, granted, I heard Cindy's comment, it's not about us necessarily, about running with the land, but I don't think anybody in their right minds would come in and clear-cut great areas to put a playground in that defeat the purpose of the common area. So I guess we don't even need that amenity area there. If we'd rather put it somewhere over here where it's more open space now, I think we're open to moving it around the site and placing an area where we're not impacting any good stanza trees.
Well, I'm not sure how others feel about it. I mean, I think there's a potential benefit to having it there, but I also see a benefit in having it down where it could come off the path closer to the creek there. And now that's just me, so I don't want to speak for everybody. But if that is scrub and invasives right there, and you do feel like that's the appropriate place to have your amenities, then that's one thing. I would definitely like to see it in the vicinity of the townhomes, just given we probably have more density in a smaller area there and less yard for people to be.
I just received a message from somebody listening online that it's hard to see in this image, but there's actually a dotted line along this image here on the screen, that's on the preservation plan, that actually delineates that tree preservation area.
Kristen, I think, wanted to say something here.
Cindy, I agree with you that I would be fine with moving that amenity area. The one thing that I thought about was having it so close to the trail. Would people confuse that perhaps that was a public park area where they could jump off and enjoy that area? And I don't know that you want that for your neighborhood. So there could be some advantages maybe to moving it a little bit to the south, like you mentioned, in that other area where you have the pond and it's just set back a little bit more from the road for a safety issue too that some people brought up. It's up to you, but I think there's some things to think about there.
Jay Schmidt?
I think at least from a land planning perspective, I'm real pleased with where you landed with this project. The things that I was most concerned with have been addressed, particularly in this last iteration. So thank you to you and your team and Beauchamps. And I'm sure you can get the last few refinements done to satisfy the council. And good luck with that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Johns?
So we don't belabor it. Justin, again, thank you for your efforts and for the Beauchamps on making this happen. I agree and with everything that's been said to date here this evening. The only other comment I would have would be one of my own personal preference, and that would be that if possible, I think the townhouses along Union Street, I personally, again, I prefer to see more of the craftsman or traditional style townhouses as opposed to perhaps the flat roof style and the one exhibit, which I think is more of an urban style downtown, if you will. I think that just the craftsman style would fit in better with the neighborhood and also with the area in general. So, but other than that, again, thank you very much for your efforts on this. You've come a long way, and it's a great looking project.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My only comments, I guess, are questions for staff and for Justin. We've had a couple of people talk about the placement of the amenity center, and yet that is tied to the concept plan. Can we modify the verbiage on that to allow Justin to pick a site? It could be there or it could be elsewhere if so choose. Would that be a part of a motion or should we leave some of this stuff to the council to adjust before it gets to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I mean, depending on how many other modifications might be suggested in a motion, right? I mean, I don't know that we want to get to more than a handful because then it starts to become hard to manage. But if it's just a few things like that, I think that could be part of a motion. that language be added to, we'd have to look at the section, probably the substantial compliance language or what, we could figure out where that would go.
Okay.
But yeah, if there's,
Yeah, because I hear about 4 things that I'll throw out here that Justin said he would be willing to modify, or one of them was a site count per district, you know, a limit of how many homes would be in a
and
district.
if I could jump on that real
Uh-huh.
quick, I think if you can go back to your concept plan. There, at the bottom in the legend, it's maybe hard to see, but there is a unit count at the far right end of each of those items. And
Okay,
if that satisfies that issue, I think we're comfortable with that being something that we could use as substantial compliance. I mean, it's identified in the concept plan
sure,
with a number of units. I think we can use that.
okay.
So I don't you to need to make a
Okay.
modification
And that's
to that
one.
issue.
Yeah, and I guess I'll ask Cindy, since she was the one who brought it up, does that satisfy you?
Well, if that is jiving with what I'm seeing on the concept plan right now, and I didn't count them all up right now to know that, I don't know if that was their max unit count, which could be more than what I'm seeing on the concept plan, or, Justin, do you know the answer to that?
I'm counting, believe it. Or not, it matches the plan. So,
Okay. So that should
If that,
satisfy that.
yeah, if that matches the
No,
plan,
that's-
and then we're, you know, it's got to be substantially compliant, and knowing that that unit count is the expectation, that's one thing, so
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
all right. One of the other things I heard was the garages on the single-family homes. Justin said they would be set back 10 feet from the front of the house? or-
Yeah, the face of the garage would set back 10 feet from the front facade of the house.
Okay,
And that's on the front load only.
On the front loads only.
on the front load,
So
yeah,
no
right.
modification to the alley load, I guess is what I'm confirming.
Right, on the front load garages. So that would be another thing to add to a motion, if Justin's willing to.
Yes,
do
we actually don't have a single plan we've built that doesn't have that, so that's an easy yes for us.
Okay, okay. The other thing I heard was the identification of the tree preservation areas. And when you pointed out the dotted line, I can now see it. So it sounds like that's taken care of.
And if we can maybe, just make them pronounce that line a little bit more between now and council, maybe just to clarify
Right,
that. Yeah,
right. To make it more visible.
yeah,
Yep.
that would
Not
be,
Code
for
it.
any of us, because we know where it is, but for,
It-
as Cindy
it-
said, somebody else who may.
that's right.
come
It's
in.
there, but it is hard to see, so, yeah.
Okay. I think I've covered everybody. Does anybody else have any other comments, or are we ready for a motion?
I would, excuse me, I would make the motion, but I don't know what conditions to say.
Well, there was
So,
the garage
once,
setback.
let me say this real quick. So I'll make a motion to forward a positive recommendation to the council with the following conditions.
One was that the garages on the front-load, single-family homes be set back 10 feet from the front of the home. That the location of the amenity area be determined by the developer at a future time and not tied to the concept plan. And I think those are the two biggies. Kevin, Rachel,
Yeah,
any others
no,
I've missed?
From my accounting, I think that's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
I agree to those conditions.
I have a
Second.
motion. Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
Dave Schmidt's second.
Did you make that motion, Jenny?
Pardon me? Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Victor
Thank
McCarty
you.
made the motion, Dave Schmidt seconded.
Thank you. Matt Deck,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes,
Ginny Kelleher,
Yes.
Andre Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljarek,
Yes,
and Kristen Berkman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all for your patience working through the process with us.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Beauchamp. Next item on our agenda is 2201 ODP-01 and 2201 SPP-01, the Ditch Road Fire Station.
Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Caleb Ernest with the Community Development Department. This proposal is for the overall development plan and primary plat review of 2 lots in a 36,530 square foot fire station on approximately 30.9 acres in the Maple Knoll PUD district. This project is located at 17001 Ditch Road, south of the Maple Glen Elementary School and 171st Street. This item received its public hearing at the January 18th Plan Commission. Since that meeting, staff has not received any public comments. We have received revisions and the plans do comply and are ready for approval tonight. Caleb Rothenberger of RQAW Corporation is here virtually. He is representing the project. He does not plan on presenting, but he is available for questions, as am I, should you have any for staff. Thank you.
Hi, this is Caleb Rothenberger with RQAW. I know this was previously shown, so I don't know if you guys need an overview of the project at this time, but essentially, as Caleb mentioned, we've broken this out into a Lot 1 and Block A to reduce the impact of the fire station development to within that lot, the roughly 4.923 acres.
Thank you. Plan Commission comments, questions? I'll start at the other end with Mike Johns.
No comments, no questions. Thank you.
Dave Schmitz,
No questions or comments, thanks.
Matt Deck,
No questions or comments.
Victor McCarty,
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Kristen,
None, thank you.
Andre Maui.
I tried to think of something, but I came up empty.
I have nothing either. Okay. I think we are ready for, oh, Cindy, sorry, Cindy.
Oh, I'm good, but thank you.
All right, I think we are ready for a motion, unless staff has any additions.
Nothing on our end.
I'll make a motion to approve the primary plat and overall development plan 2201 SPP-01 and 2201 ODP-01 with the condition that all necessary approvals be obtained from the Westfield Public Works Department and Hamilton County Surveyor's Office prior to the issuance of an improvement location permit.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Dave Schmitz and a second by Andre Maui.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Ginny Kelleher,
Yes,
Andre Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljarek,
Yes.
Kristen Berkman,
Yes,
and Matt Deck.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. That's the end of our agenda items. We have many items that are continued to a future meeting. Does staff have any updates or anything we should be knowing about?
No, not other than just your next meeting, don't forget, is on a Tuesday due to President's Day holiday. And we have also added another planner to our team, sitting right here in the front row. Ryan Collingwood comes to
Stand
us
up, please.
from
I can't see you down there hiding.
Cleveland, Ohio area. So this is his
Welcome.
second week with us, so you'll be seeing him more, so. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Reports and comments from Plan Commission members.
I had a question, Jenny.
Mhm.
I just had a quick question, I guess to direct towards staff. We had received the email regarding when developers have questions for us on how we should address that. Is that something where, if that happens, do you want staff to accompany a phone call? Or, I mean, I think it's, I guess I want to use the word irresponsible of us as a community not to respond when people need clarifications on comments that were made on public record. And so I'm just looking for direction for all of us on how we might address that until we get the workshop system going.
Yeah, I guess I would just say generally, I think those should probably be filtered through staff at this point, so we can have that record available to share with the full commission, probably at the next meeting. But yeah, I think that should be, we should be the conduit through. I don't know. I mean, it's been all handled through written correspondence. I don't know that there's been any meetings or phone calls per se that we've been part of necessarily coordinating, so.
Kevin, let me jump in here, because I have a question too. I mean, it used to be when I was on the APC, we talked to developers all the time. And now I know that the attitude is that they really don't want us to do that. I've asked the mayor, and he said, you can talk to developers, it's fine, as long as you don't have big meetings and work through things. But if you have questions and they have questions and comments, it's fine. But in order to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, and knowing that sometimes emails, and texts are not a way to have a conversation, could we then have a phone call with a staff person on there? And then, even then, it's ex parte, because even if we send you information and you send it to the developer, it's ex parte from the rest of the APC members. So it's kind of like.
Well, yeah, usually it's a consolidated list of comments that we receive from everybody. That's what we do with the issue list, right? I mean, that's kind of we bring everything together from a public hearing, and then we usually have a handful of days after a public hearing where additional comments can kind of filter in. We put all that together into a single list that the developer and the full plan commission all get to see. So that's kind of the way we've handled it, and keeping it kind of out in the open for everybody to see all of the questions and issues.
Well, that's good to know, because I never know whether somebody else makes a comment and sends it on, and.
Yeah, we may not identify individuals that
Right,
may.
and that's okay.
And if
But
there's
at least I
repeated
know
comments, we try to consolidate
that
it.
issue list is generated by other people, even though I may not know what's happening
Yeah,
at the time.
and so that, to be fair, I mean, that only happens kind of once in the process, right? I mean, that's after the public hearing, that's when that list is generated. What we haven't done, which is what we're trying to close this gap, is what happens after subsequent revisions, right? And maybe that's something we can do in an interim, is create a second issue list, maybe that comes out of the revisions. I don't know.
Yeah, because sometimes, it's fairly straightforward the first time around, and then sometimes, like with Justin's here, there were some issues that I think he needed clarification on, and, okay.
Can I jump in here a minute? It's Cindy.
Sure.
I've always thought it was so weird that the two counselors are the ones that can talk to the developer, can talk to, residents in the area. And so then we are kind of in this weird position as planning commissioners, because you guys are in the same voting spot as I am. But in a way, it's like we have undue influence, if you will, in that we talk directly with the developer. You know what I mean? And I mean, just like this time, I did get my comments into staff for this project. But, no one's got the benefit of knowing what was in my brain space either when we did this. So I'm just really hoping we get this workshop set up. And I think it'll alleviate a lot of these other problems and issues with the ex parte, because we can all sit at a table and do it. So I'm just really pushing for us to move that way. And hi, Ryan, haven't met you yet, but look forward to it.
Yeah, ditto, Cindy. I think we're anxious to get this rolled out too. I think we're hoping to, if not, then it won't be this next city council meeting, but if there's a second city council meeting in February, possibly introduce something then, if not the first one in March. The workshop stuff, frankly, is not difficult from a UDO amendment perspective and rules perspective, but I think we just want to make sure we're catching everything on the plat committee side of it, so we can run these parallel, and that's taken a little bit more time to work through. So, like I said, hopefully we can introduce those amendments in the next 30 days or less and process that and then have it be our new process in April or whatever.
Yeah, hopefully in March, but,
Yeah.
I mean, you can just cut and paste from our old rules of procedure, because it had all that in there.
No, I understand. From the rules of procedures
Right.
is the easy side. I think there's
Right.
some things that we've done with the UDO since that have tied some things in that's making it a little more complicated. We have to untie some things. I think the overall development plan is causing a little bit of just something we have to wrestle with that we didn't have to before.
All right.
Yep.
Well, you know more about that than I do, so.
I guess that maybe we all need to pay a little more attention to this issue list, because I was just going through the one for Springwater, and I know at both hearings, both times they came before us without a vote, I talked about buffering these neighbors, and I guess I just don't see that here on this issue list. And so I guess just how we can kind of work together and connect all these dots, that would be fantastic. I mean, I think the workshop will help do that, but I don't know. Does that sound good, Kevin, that we just kind of work together on this issue list? Because I'm just not sure this is capturing all of the issues, so, that were raised. I mean, I don't know about anybody else on the commission, but I know I brought up buffering, so thank you.
Okay. Any other plan commission members have any comments or things to bring up? Guess the next thing on the agenda is the downtown update.
Thank you. Just a real quick update on that. We are reaching out to 2 design firms to generate some ideas for the State Road 32 corridor. And we're excited to see what they will bring us. We're going to ask them to do 3 different pricing levels. One is the budgeted amount of $330,000. And then also some plans at a range of $700,000 and $1.1 million, so that we can see how that would look along that corridor, as we are very anxious to make that safe and beautiful for all the citizens of Westfield. So that's our update right now. Does anyone have any questions on that? What's going on with that? Okay, great, thank you.
City Council Liaison?
That would be me. Council did meet January 24th. I won't go into Kristen's presentation that she gave, but she did a fantastic job to council about the 32 streetscape. So after that, we had Linda Nass and Bob Beaudry provided the RDC quarterly update, very extensive. If anyone's interested, you might want to go back and listen. The Courtyards of Spring Mill PUD, council tabled this. If you recall, it was at the APC and move forward, but there was a lot of concern about the airport and related land use issues, and we have some council members that are working at a lot of the little details about the airport concerns, and if it's proper to have a residential community next to the airport. So that will show up back at council after they get a little bit more information there, and I'm hoping they're working with staff on that. We did approve the Osborne Trails PUD amendment, the one that was for the signage. We also had comments from counselors about the safety on Tumblingson Road. If anyone's been up by Chatham and on Tumblingson, you know that it's getting quite dangerous up there, especially with a lot of construction vehicles and a very small amount of pavement. So that was discussed with Jeremy about how we go about that. The city now has the right-of-way on the east side with the Chatham project. So the improvements there are not budgeted until 2023 on Tumblingson. So there are concerns. You might see some trees coming down, though. Just as a warning, I know people get a lot of backlash there, but we might need to be doing that for safety coming up here until we can get that road improved. Let's see, we also have our next ARPA meeting on the 11th. If anyone's been following that, we'll be working on the applications for the nonprofits. And I want to put it in everyone's ear at the next council meeting on the 14th. I know Valentine's Day, Shannon from the YMCA will be there discussing their $5 million request from the city, of which we are considering the proposed use of funds from ARPA to help them achieve that. It's not a for sure. And so I know that I am seeking input from the community, and that would include anyone from the Planning Commission, of course, but the general public. And so that presentation from Shannon will be on the 14th. If you can attend, please do go watch and weigh in your thoughts. If you can get those comments to me, and if you want to see that happen, want to see the city funds go there, then please do let me know. That's it.
Thank you, Cindy. Dave Schmitz, BZA?
BZA means next week.
All right, thank you. All right. Kevin, community development, anything else?
Sorry, nope, that's it for me.
Okay.
Sorry, I went out of turn. I'm
That's
good,
all right.
thanks.
That's all right. You probably should be at the top of the list anyway. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion by Dave Schmitz, seconded by Victor McCarty to adjourn.
Mike Johns,
Yes?
Jeannie Kelleher,
Yes?
Andre Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljarek,
Yes.
Kristen Berkman,
Yes.
Matthew Deck.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are adjourned. See you next, in 2 weeks on a Tuesday, right, Kevin? Thank you.